Imagine this. Man walking through a park. His attention is captured by the scene of a father spinning his daughter around in the air. And he's moved by the look in the little girl's eyes of absolute certainty and trust. Months later, the same man is in yet another heated argument with his wife, and he raises his hand to hit her again. But this time he pauses, for in her eyes he sees a glimpse of what he remembers seeing in the girl's eyes in the park. And suddenly he's overcome with a feeling of deep, deep shame. And somehow, his wife, through her half-closed eyes, recognizes this deep, deep shame and forgives him. And they walk out of that house for the first time in years as a couple. They pass a young man walking down the street who looks at them and smiles. They smile at him and he smiles back, and he thinks of what the future could be like with a mate, a family. And he changes his course and walks into an alley and throws his gun into a trash can and decides that revenge for his friend's death is not quite worth the rest of his life. And later that day, as this young man tells his counselor of this act, this change of heart he had, the counselor is so moved that he tells his brother, the school teacher. And the school teacher is so moved by his brother's story that the next day, during the middle class, he decides to just tell the children to close all the books. And instead of him teaching history that day, he tells them as many stories as he can remember of people doing amazing and wonderful things, overcoming incredible odds. Not famous people, just regular people from his own life. And these kids were so inspired that they go home and they tell their parents about the amazing things that people can do and about the amazing things that they now want to do. And the parents were so moved that they call in to the principal of this school. And the principal is so taken by so many calls around this teacher that he brings this teacher in and says, "You obviously have tapped into a vein with these parents. You should run for local office." And the teacher finds his way to a local event, and they push him in front of a microphone, and he tells the community of greatness and the possibility within us all. Well, his little talk gets captured by people there with their iPhones and their cameras. It gets on the internet, and it spreads around the internet. It's picked up by the local news. And in a matter of a few days, this man, this unknown teacher, is sharing his feeling with the entire world. That there's a shift happening around the world. That people are ready to transition into a better world. And the world leader calls another world leader just to have this conversation. That world leader had also watched that same video. And somewhere in some small town, a brand new baby cries out to the world as it takes in its very first breath. And it is born into a world where peace is actually a possibility. Imagine this. Now imagine that none of this would have ever happened had this one guy who on a very bad day, possibly the worst day he could remember for most of his life, hadn't decided that his bad day should not be carried over into the bad days of other people, especially his family. And he decided to leave his bad day at the doorstep when he walked into his house. And he looked at his daughter and said, "Come on, sweetie, let's go play in the park." Imagine. We may not always see, and we may not always know, but all of us, domino.